Hello and welcome to this edition of Talk Vietnam. Do you believe that you or any ordinary person can make a documentary film? Well, with the advent of technology, that dream is now possible. However, for professionals, documentary filmmaking still remains a playground of passion and creativity in order to convey universal humane values to all. And our guest today is actually an award-winning documentary filmmaker and also TV producer and editor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Craig Forrest, international documentary filmmaker. This is the greatest day and time for documentary films than ever before in the history of cinema. So many options, so many possibilities, so many great stories to write, produce, direct, shoot, edit, create, tell documentary stories.
Làm phim tài liệu chính là phản ánh cái sự chân thực, và người làm phim tài liệu chính là người xử lý tư liệu và chất liệu nhưng thực cuộc sống một cách tài tình.
Phim tài liệu chính là cái cách kể chuyện đem lại cho người xem được một cái thông điệp gì đó.
Để mà đạt đến cái mức tài liệu thì nó phải nói được một cái, nó phải nói một cái bài học, nó luôn đúng ở trong bất kỳ thời điểm nào.
Ở Việt Nam có rất nhiều đề tài hay để có thể làm được phim tài liệu. Tuy nhiên với mỗi một người ấy thì tôi quan niệm rằng là phim tài liệu thì phải đầu tiên trước khi mà khán giả cảm thấy hay thì mình phải cảm thấy khao khát và muốn làm nó.
So now let me introduce you to our guest of Talk Vietnam today. His name is Craig David Forrest, and he's here in Vietnam for a series of trainings in how to make documentary films. Now, he's accumulated over 40 years in the field, and he's here to share more about the beauty and power of documentary films, as well as the current trends in the industry in not only the United States, but also in the world. Thank you very much, Craig, for coming on to our show. How is your trip in Vietnam so far?
Oh, this has been great.
And is this your first time to Vietnam?
Second time.
Second time.
Yeah, before, about 14, 15 years ago, I went to Ho Chi Minh City for a few days, and then we went to Mekong Delta area for a project, a video project, and then back to Ho Chi Minh City. And I actually got to see President Clinton.
Really?
It was his last.
Yes, 2000.
It was his last overseas trip, and he drove right by me in the presidential limousine. I thought, I have to go all the way to Vietnam to see the American president. He's as far away as the coffee table.
That's really cool. Let's talk about this trip. What are you teaching the students in this trip?
My favorite subject is what I'm teaching. I'm teaching documentaries, nonfiction storytelling. Almost anything can be a documentary as long as it's nonfiction and it's done in a story format or poetic story format as well. Short films and dramatic is always a script. It's fiction with usually characters involved, actors, actresses saying lines and such. But documentaries are nonfiction, and usually it's people that tell the story. They tell their own story, interviews or narration. So it's been a lot of fun.
What is a good documentary to you?
Good documentary to me is an interesting story told by interesting people in an interesting location in an interesting way.
How do you define interesting?
Something of interest that draws your attention that you just have to watch it.
How powerful can a documentary be if it is successful?
That's a very good question. That's an excellent question. If it's just a really, like we say, compelling story, the first thing it should do, it should make you think. And if it can make you think, then there's the possibility that it can also change your outlook about something. You thought about the subject one way, but after seeing the documentary, you thought about it another way. Or it can make you get up and say, oh, I don't like that, this, or I don't like that, and such. So that's what's called a call to action.
Yes, a change of thought, and also a call to action.
It makes you want to do something.
Exactly.
It elicits from you some kind of movement of action, and that's when a documentary becomes really successful.
Can you share with us some illustrations of, just how powerful a documentary film can be? I mean, specific documentaries that you yourself have done, or documentaries that you find are very useful for the students learning how to make documentaries.
Okay. Let me start with one that I've made. Years ago, I had a friend who was worked for a charity, a nonprofit in East Africa. And we spent about 4 days traveling through just the most difficult areas of the country of Burundi. And we did this story on tribal warfare, where Hutus and the Tutsis hated each other so much. And one tribe was in power, but they were the minority, and they did all these atrocities to the majority, but because of power. And we're talking bloody killings. I mean, burn huts down with people in the hut, and just the worst that you could think of in atrocities. And let me say what the finish was inside the Burundi troubled nation, new tribe. What happened was there was a spirit of forgiveness between the Tutsis and the Hutus, and I'll be honest with you, it happened at church. Oh. And there were people that sat together at church and forgave each other, and the person next to them was the person who had killed their family. Mm. And we did this little 5-minute documentary and started sending it around to a few video and film festivals. And then I sent it into a very prestigious competition called Cine Golden Eagle. Spielberg, when he was young, won Cine Golden Eagle, and a number of other really well-known filmmakers. And in December of that year, found out it won in the motivational category, and I was stunned.
There's always a bit of danger going into Burundi because of the ongoing civil war. Since 1993-94, there have been almost 500,000 people killed in Burundi. The struggle is between two ethnic groups, the Tutsi and the Hutu. The Tutsis have controlled and dominated the politics and the economics of Burundi for the last 300 years. But they only make up about 10% of the population. About 90% of the population is Hutu. And they feel like they've been colonized by the Tutsi. And their solution to that is to rise up and to kill every Tutsi that they can find. That has sparked the genocide that we know that's taken place in Burundi and Rwanda. The national leadership of the Foursquare Gospel Church in Burundi have a desire to plant a church in every village. And they'll actually fund the church planting out of their own pocket because they know that the only hope for Burundi is for the message of the gospel to enter into every heart. That's the only hope of eradicating the tribal hatred. On this particular day, we baptized 480 people from 10 churches. These are their new converts for the past 3 months. The pastors will get down the water, the people just come. You have just like 1 minute to baptize each person that comes to you. And there are Hutus and Tutsis being baptized together. There are Hutus and Tutsis who are doing the water baptism. We are one in Christ. We all work together because now we belong to a new tribe. They are reconciled in Christ. I want to challenge you to pray for our people in Burundi, to pray that Burundi pastors will receive protection from God's Holy Spirit, that the gospel message will go forth with great power, and that the church will continue to grow in Burundi.
Let's now talk about the process of making a documentary. Mm-hmm. I mean, that one documentary, perhaps it was shorter. It took 4 days, but I'm sure other documentaries take longer. Right. What is the process like, and what is the most important part that kind of contributes to the success of the film in the end?
Always, always, always start with a good story. You can have the best tools in the world, cameras, equipment, all of that. Why didn't it work?
The story
didn't work. For some reason, you didn't believe it, or you didn't like it, or it wasn't told well, or you started having a disbelief of, oh, I don't believe that, and such, and you're not kind of getting into the film.
Once you have a story, another very important part of this whole equation to get a good movie is preparation, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. An amateur will go into a documentary and spend 80% of their time in production, whereas a professional will spend 80% of their time preparing and 10% in production.
Yes.
Let me give you an example.
Yes, do.
When I turned 30, I was given a commission to do a documentary series on world religions. And it started out, Zhuang, as 6 short documentaries, 15, 20 minutes long. We kept traveling with my camera crew all over the world doing this series, documentary, feature series, and it turned out from 6 to 13 over the course of about a year or two. The group was a humanitarian group, gets adding more documentaries to it as we traveled. And it took 3.5 years for me to shoot that series, 3.5. And it turned out to be about 4 hours long. There is it's called ASL, average shot length. The amount of minutes that you need of raw material, raw footage, before you get what would be the finished minute.
Yes.
And the average in documentaries is 25-1.
Oh, wow.
25 minutes of raw footage
1 minute.
to get 1 finished minute. Now, working on The Amazing Race for CBS, I counted, and just looking at the footage and such, that it was 80-1.
Whew.
80 minutes of footage for 1 minute in the final show or program.
That's true.
And do you know who the person is with the lowest amount of average shot length?
Yes,
was the
who?
Director Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, yes, of course.
He was so prepared.
Yes.
He knew exactly what he wanted in script and storyboards, that when it came time to actually shoot the film, he said, that's the most boring part to me, is shooting the film. I already shot the film when I wrote the script and did the storyboards, and I can see it in my mind. So his average shot length was 3-1.
Yes. Wow.
That's incredible.
3 to 1.
Just 3 minutes to get 1.
Yes.
Because he was so prepared.
The capital city of Hanoi is Craig's first stopover here in Vietnam, and in the following, we'll follow him to his class to see how he challenges and inspires his students.
Stay in the shade. Stay in the shade. Stay in the shade.
Trong này cho mát anh ạ.
Yeah, better for the camera, better for the cameraman.
Đứng ở đây thì mình mát, mà cái máy quay thì nó cũng sẽ không bị
There's no big difference between over there and here.
After 3 days of lectures, Craig Forrest and his students are taken to the street to make films. This group is making a documentary on life in front of the Hanoi Cancer Hospital. With his 40 years of experience, the teacher adopts a hands-on and detailed approach when instructing his students.
So she's the story.
The story focuses on a woman who has solved dreams for 15 years in front of the hospital.
It's been 15 years since I've started working selling tea here.
Ở nước ngoài thì họ tận dụng rất là tốt những cái phỏng vấn của nhân vật, cách kể chuyện của họ cũng rất là hấp dẫn, nhưng mà thông qua rất là nhiều hình thức khác nhau. Còn ở chúng ta lại nhiều khi áp đặt bằng lời bình của chúng ta nhiều quá.
Meanwhile, this group wants to tell the story of a small alley right next to the classroom. 3 mobile food stalls do business there during breakfast, lunch and dinner time.
I'm Cody's Tina. Got it.
Sure. How long is it?
After filming and editing, the teacher and students sit down to exchange the lessons they have learned.
Quan trọng nhất mà cho đến thời điểm này tôi ghi nhớ sau lớp học của thầy Forrest, đó là việc kể chuyện bằng hình ảnh và kể chuyện làm sao để tiết chế lời mà mọi người có thể không nghe lời hoặc là không quá chú ý đến lời bình của mình mà vẫn có thể hiểu được câu chuyện mình đang kể là gì. Và một cái mấu chốt nữa là phải chọn cho mình một câu chuyện thật hay.
Not only newcomers, but also veteran documentary filmmakers with 30 years of experience like Nghiêm Nhan can take away something from the course.
Or a place. Hoặc là về một địa điểm. Cái điều đầu tiên mà ông đem đến cho chúng tôi những người làm phim tài liệu, tức là về mặt hình ảnh phải rất đẹp, phải rất cầu kỳ, rất chỉn chu, không được có một hình ảnh nào gọi là lỗi về mặt nghệ thuật. Đấy là cái thứ nhất. Cái thứ hai là qua cái lớp học này của ông thì ông mở ra cho chúng tôi một cách nhìn thoải mái về phim tài liệu và làm cho người làm phim tài liệu rất tự tin. Và đấy chính là một trong cánh cửa giúp chúng tôi, một cái cửa mở ra cho chúng tôi nhìn ra thế giới.
For someone who has attended many courses on documentary filmmaking, like Hồng Liên. This course has provided her with the latest in global documentary making trends.
Decision making is critical.
Với một cái đối tượng khán giả bây giờ là khán giả trẻ, họ cần âm thanh, hình ảnh chuyển động liên tục, và để cho họ không bị nhàm chán thì phim tài liệu cái xu hướng mới nó cũng phải như thế.
During the 5-day course, Craig worked with nearly 30 students from different departments at the Vietnam television. He taught them basic documentary filmmaking, giving them tips on the 8 mistakes that amateur filmmakers make, the 7 useful habits for filmmakers, as well as the tactics with camera work, lighting, and sound.
The most important principle or principles that I've taught in the last few days is that producers, camera people, editors, writers should not be stuck with telling a story in the same way that they've always told it. To be open to other ideas, other styles, other influences, and also to watch other people's ways of telling documentaries. So maybe you pick up a hint or a style or a technique that you hadn't thought of before. See if that works for you. It's okay to be creative and to take some risks.
Now this time, during your trip, you taught in a number of places, including Hanoi, Da Nang, and Cần Thơ.
Yes.
Can you share with us some of the key points in your class that you have been teaching the students?
Yeah. One of the things that's important is when you're in a developing nation like Vietnam, is to expose, or any country, doesn't matter. I teach all over the world. I've taught in probably 25 countries of the world in the last 7 years. One of the most important aspects is to open up your imagination and your creativity to see documentaries and styles that are not familiar to you. With documentaries and films, you need to be exposing and opening up your creativity and your experience to all kinds of other forms of documentaries, just to freshen your perspective and such. I've shown in the last few days music documentaries, travel, short film documentaries, a person fixing a Christmas tree, gypsies, all kinds of things, which the typical student or participant in our classes would never see, because they're too busy making the documentaries that they've been commissioned to make.
Exactly.
So that really pushes the participant, the student, kind of breaks up their comfort zone, so to speak. And look, I'm pushing, I've been in this industry almost 40 years. And I started when I was 2, so I'm really, really young.
Wow,
no,
2.
I'm not 2. I'm just completely kidding.
We'll talk about that.
No, I'm not 2. Don't go there. Don't go there. But I've been almost 40 years at this, and I am still learning. Every day, every week is something new that I learn. You don't want to be stuck doing the exact same thing the same way all the time. The subject doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be about history or the war or politics or whatever. You could do a documentary on a restaurant, or the guy who fixes motor scooters, or the sports team, your football team from Vietnam that goes to a tournament. It can be just a whole array, a whole buffet of music. You could be the national opera. or the dancing or the folkloric dancers of Vietnam.
Yes.
It can be anything, pretty much your imagination. There's 4,000 black bears that are still in Vietnam that we found. And there's a story right there.
Thời gian để có thể sống được với nhân vật, hiểu thực sự nhân vật của mình như thế nào, và để biết được mọi thứ thực tế nó như thế nào, mình cần rất nhiều thời gian. Và chính vì thế nên là khi đi làm phim, nếu như với một số lượng ngày nhất định, một cái quota nhất định, thì mình không khai thác được hết, hoặc là cái máy quay của mình cũng không khai thác được những chi tiết hay ở trong đời sống thực sự, mà mình cần phải rình bắt mình mới có được, chứ không phải là mình đến đấy là mình quay được ngay.
Cũng có nhiều lúc tôi bị mâu thuẫn giữa việc là mình sẽ phải làm những bộ phim thật sự là nghiêm túc, chính luận với những cái thứ mà mình thích, ví dụ chẳng hạn như là giải trí, như âm nhạc, như nghệ thuật, như giới tính.
Vấn đề đó là một người phải đảm đương quá nhiều những cái nhiệm vụ, ví dụ như vừa làm tổ chức sản xuất, vừa làm biên tập, vừa làm chủ nhiệm, vừa làm dẫn chương trình, vừa làm phóng viên. và có thể kiêm thêm là trợ lý lo những cái công việc hậu cần nữa. Không thể nào mà có thể có một cái ekip đông người đi để phục vụ cho một cái phim 10 đến 15 phút được, và nó lại phát sóng thường xuyên nữa.
Công nghệ để mà có thể ghi đến hình ảnh, những âm thanh ngay thì chúng ta, cái việc ứng dụng của chúng ta hiện nay nó vẫn chưa được nhiều lắm trong phim tài liệu. Nó vẫn theo cái cách làm hiện nay là cái cổ điển.
So in the previous clip, we just saw a number of documentary film kind of makers talk about the challenges in making films. What would be your advice in terms of finding a story?
Couple things. One is always have some way to take notes with you. Your phone or a little pad of paper with a pencil or a pen that you keep in your pocket or your purse or your whatever. And whenever you think of an idea or see a story or think of something, write it down so you don't. I'm getting older, so I got to write things down all the time. But write it down so you don't forget it, because that one idea may lead to another idea. Now, there's something else that comes with that as well. It's be an observer. Look around and see what's going on around you. Read the paper. Check the news. Watch films. Be current with what's going on. Be contemporary and current with what's going on. And out of that, you're going to find some ideas that you could use, and then zero in or put your direction towards something that you think that you'd like to shoot.
How does the way of making documentaries in the different countries you've been differ?
Something has changed, and it's the cell phone, it's the mobile phone. That has changed the ability now here as we do this interview. More modern technology is in your hand, and you can shoot, literally record a story, an interview, footage. You can even put it together on the phone now.
That's true.
Yeah, with different, with Vine or some of these different apps and such. And it can be on YouTube 30 minutes from now.
Yes.
And that has changed the world. So don't let technology get in the way of the tools of telling your story. Just grab some kind of tool that will do the job and get out there and shoot. And if you're not happy, shoot some more, or shoot it from another angle, or try it again. And don't give up. There has to be sort of a persistent attitude of, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep going till I get this finished.
That's true.
And look at your footage, put together, okay, I need one more interview. And sometimes that one interview leads to another part of the story you didn't expect. That is documentary filmmaking. And that's part of the fun. It's the discovery process. And along the way, there's some mostly nice surprises, and hopefully not too many shocking surprises. You never know.
Yes.
155-year-old Na Fei Chong Monastery is more than just a pleasant sight on the Inle Lake of Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. As these French tourists know, it's also a loving home to the famous Burmese jumping cats.
At the moment, we have 11 cats.
The cats are named after Hollywood stars like Tina Turner, Michael Jackson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt. Tina Turner, Michael Jackson, Leonardo DiCaprio. The biggest revelation has been kept for last. You won't believe who's pregnant.
Julia Roberts is pregnant.
And here's the father, looking completely without guilt. A warm and fuzzy Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know these Hollywood types, no shame whatsoever. So there you have it. It started as a way for a group of Buddhist monks to break up the monotony of life at a monastery. Now it's become a destination for tourists around the world. Where else can you watch everyone from Tina Turner to Michael Jackson take such a dramatic leap of faith?
Back now to the filming industry, the documentary film industry in the United States. What are some of the challenges that the filmmakers in the U.S. are facing in terms of making documentaries?
The challenges are pretty much the same they've been for a long time. Money.
Budget.
Budget. You know, the first documentaries were 1896 with the Lumiere brothers.
Yes.
Simply taking footage of their dad drinking a beer or a horse.
Street life.
Yeah, those were called actualities.
Yes.
And that is the basis of film cinema, of moving pictures as we know it now. Again, the big dilemma is money. It's not distribution. And for feature documentaries, it's really difficult still to get your documentary into a movie theater in America. It's got to be more than 45 minutes long usually. A feature documentary is usually considered anything 45 minutes or longer, or in some cases 1 hour and longer. There's so much competition now. So many young people go to film school. And how many filmmakers can any one country have when there are, might be 5,000 new filmmakers a year? I don't know. There's somebody told me a statistic, but I don't remember it is. And they're all coming out and there's no job for them. So they've got to go back and live with mom and dad and find some kind of job until they get to the point financially that they can get the job in film or television or a media company or whatever.
Where do you see kind of, you know, the future of documentary in the next 5 years in terms of development? You know, where would you like it to go?
Well, I would like to see documentaries taken more seriously than they are. When I went to film school, I went to a very prestigious film school in California, Chapman University. And we didn't talk about documentaries at all in 3 years. I think we spent all of 30 minutes talking about documentaries because the film school really wanted to push out and produce filmmakers and film students that would go out there and would make feature films and win an Academy Award.
Yes.
If you win an Academy Award, it's going to make our film school look like, wow.
Reputation.
They reputation and such. And now finally in the last few years, there's an actual documentary program that's good. I think documentaries need to be taken more seriously. There are more good documentary stories available in this world than there are feature film story ideas.
In terms of audience, what are, you know, kind of the main audience of documentaries nowadays? I mean, I know documentaries span across a lot of fields, but what are some of the target audience that documentary filmmakers are looking to grab the attention of?
Two ways to go on that. Good question. One is if you stick with the documentary format, travel documentaries are always popular simply because people love to see other parts of the world through travel documentaries and travel shows. You know, one of my clients in the past has been Travel Channel and Discovery Channel and A&E and such, and Animal Planet for, you know, animal stories and such. And those are commissioned pieces. And majority of my documentaries, 97% of them, have been commissioned pieces. So I didn't need to worry about going to find money. The other side is when you cross over and do reality television, where you're doing what started out as documentary format, but now you're doing sensationalism, people yelling at each other, and people throwing
conflict.
or their conflict, right? And the tension doesn't get resolved. Reality, at least in the West, is not going to go away. And I understand in Vietnam there's reality programs, but they don't really they're too nice to each other, is what I've been told. I haven't seen one yet, so I don't know.
It's not enough sensationalism.
Not enough sensationalism. And I hate this, I do. But sensationalism, by our human nature, sells. And that's what gets ratings. And if that gets ratings, that pays the bills, and you can sell advertising.
Exactly.
And it just sort of goes around in a circle.
Craig Forrest is best known for producing, directing, and lensing shows, stories, and documentaries that often have involved difficult or dangerous overseas locations while exploring unique subjects ranging from voodoo to Holocaust to silent film. Various projects and shows he has produced or directed have earned numerous awards, most notably a Cine Golden Eagle. He has worked professionally at network level for CBS The Amazing Race, ABC's In Concert, Discovery Channel's World of Wonder, Travel Channel's World's Best, among others. Craig holds a Doctor of Fine Arts degree in Redemptive Filmmaking from Kingdom Seminary and a Master's in Film Studies at Chapman University.
Let's talk now a little bit about kind of you being behind the camera. Do you have moments where you're very perfectionist, or how do you normally work in terms of, getting that shot or...
I will tell you something I learned about dealing with people. And someone taught this to me a while back. Treat ordinary people like they're famous, and treat famous people like they're ordinary.
Wow.
Or normal,
Yes.
be a better word. Normal people like they're famous, famous people like they're normal, and you'll do well. I will tell you, having been a cameraman for so many years as well as a director, is that I now pretty much hire really good camera people and let them do their job well and let them have input to me. And so my whole job is to make the shoot go smoothly as smoothly as we can, and to get really good interviews from people. Let them feel comfortable so that they can just simply have a conversation, and out of that conversation something good is going to happen.
What about film interested you so much and kept you passionate for the past 40 years?
You know what? I love to be entertained and moved and challenged and entertained. I really love to be entertained. And the thing about documentaries is that they're more informational. They're there to inform you and inspire you. That'd probably be one of the best ways to go about describing documentaries. They need to inform you and inspire you if possible.
Now let's talk more about your travel documentary filmmaking, and the process of you making documentaries has taken you to around 149 countries around the world, and 14 or 15 rounds around the world, and on 6 continents.
Yep.
That's amazing.
6 continents. I can't believe it myself.
Now, you were part of the team for Amazing Race, season 14, and this won the 2009 Primetime Emmy Award.
We're very proud of that.
Yes.
Too.
Tell us about this process.
I have never worked so hard in my entire life.
Yes, as you said,
as Amazing Race.
The ratio from average shot length to actual minutes used.
I'm talking about the pressure. I spent 3.5 months preparing for a 3-week shoot.
Yeah.
And once The Amazing Race starts, and in my season it started on Halloween, October 31, that's easy to remember, and they're gone. And once they're gone, the race is on.
Yes.
And there's no going back. There's no, oh, let's all fly back to America and we'll start it again. Once it starts, it's on.
Yes.
And it doesn't really truly finish
until
somebody gets at the finish line.
That's the best race, when it's tight.
And I made some great friends. We had a crew of probably about 45 that were in U.S., but I still have a few very good colleagues from that race, and I really saw how professional and organized you have to be in order to do a race and a show of that consequence.
Yes. Now, some of your overseas assignments, some of your commissions have sent you to very dangerous hotspots in the world.
Nobody ever asked me about that. That's good.
Where are some of the dangerous places that you've been, and how did you feel coming into such places?
One of the things about being a documentary filmmaker, if you're going to do any kind of travel to off the beaten track, is you have to have a certain amount of courage and a certain amount of confidence. But there was a couple times I feared for where I was and what I was doing. Iraq.
Yes.
During the Iraq War.
During the Iraq War.
During the Iraq War.
You were there.
Now, this was after the major gunfire and such was over with, and the borders were somewhat secure, and before all this surge of people blowing themselves up and blowing up things and people. But there was still fighting in the bazaar in Mosul, which Mosul now these years later, right now, is under attack by the Shiite army as well. And there was a sense of, you better really watch yourself. And I was just starting to date Rebecca. We weren't married. And it was, as you know, she takes me to the airport, come back to me, don't die. You know, we just started dying. I'm dying. That's a great Freudian stuff. We were just starting to date. And so I came back and we got married.
Yes.
But I could sense the danger that was there.
What do you think is the most important role that documentaries should play?
First, show you a world, a subject, person, an event, whatever that might be, that you are not or were not familiar with. Show you something new and interesting and engaging. Okay? Could be wildlife, could be sports, could be something political, could be music. Get you to think. Not just entertain you, but get you to think. And then if that documentary can move you in some way, it fades to black and you think, you laughed, or you cried, or you wondered, or made you mad because something didn't seem right, and an injustice in this world, or made you smile.
What are some of the greatest rewards for being a documentary filmmaker?
Working with great people is without a doubt one of the great rewards of the world. I did a story in an upcountry, Asian upcountry, and it was an orphanage for children that had HIV. And I had my camera out, and there were volunteers from the West that came to clean and bathe the children and hold them and feed them and such. And there was a little girl that was in the arms of one of the volunteers right in front of me, just as far away as just right here. And you could just see her eyes above the shoulder of the volunteer. The volunteer had their back to me. You could see the eyes from my point of view with the camera. And I just framed a shot, hit record, and the volunteer was just sort of not only hugging, but rocking the child and soothing the child. This is a child with HIV/AIDS. And I just framed the shot, hit record, and I just let the tape record this one. Didn't do anything. Just let the hugging and the soothing and the rocking go back and forth for a minute or two. And I stopped record. That child died the next day. Mm. And if that doesn't break you up, I don't know what will.
Yes, very moving moments.
That's when what you do makes a difference.
Yes, the rewarding
And you're
moments.
just honored to have the privilege to be there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Craig.
My privilege.
Yes.
Absolute privilege. I hope we get to do this again.
Thank you. And we hope that you'll come back to Vietnam to impart more of your knowledge on documentary filmmaking here in the country. Thank you so much, and all of the best of luck to your future endeavors.
My privilege, and thank you so much for making this painless and easy and a great fun time, and to talk about some things I haven't even thought about. I've forgotten things that out of my memory. So this has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that wraps up this edition of Talk Vietnam with Craig Forrest. And we hope that even if you're not a documentary maker, you've had found some interest in documentary films in our talk today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you more next time here in Talk Vietnam. Goodbye.